The NRG podcast showcases industry leaders who share universal truths and lessons learned for those looking to gain inspiration, motivation, and game-changing information. Now, here's your host, Nick Roshdi.
Podcast. I am your host, Nick Roshdi, and I'm super excited to bring just an absolute dynamite guest here, and can't wait for all of our audience to get to meet Taylor Pollei. Shout out to Paul.
Yes, I get to participate in this here. This is like the cool kids club here. You know, I'm looking at you guys all dressed up, looking sharp here.
Thanks, Paul. So, again, everyone, welcome Taylor Pollei with the Pollei Facial Plastic Surgery. Hello, Taylor. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Nick. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to have you. So again, you know, I always have guests from different professions that are, you know, that have well-balanced lives with regards to, family, personal, as well as professional. So Taylor happens to be another great guy that I know that is in the, in the program, like the rest of our guests, that is very disciplined and has a routine that he follows, and it works for him. So I want to, ask Taylor a couple questions about, what his, day-to-day activity looks like, and share that, share everything with you guys and gals to set a great example, and hopefully, just be another source of motivation for all of our audience. So Taylor, tell me about, what you do on a daily routine on a Monday through Friday. Just go over your routine on a one work day, basically activity.
Gotcha. So this kind of routine was about 20 years in the making. It wasn't until I was kind of mid-30s over the last 3 years since I finished all of my medical and surgical training that I could really jump into it. Prior to that, I feel like I was just a slug. Kind of the indentured servitude mentality. So it's been great for me. It's kind of an awakening. It's something that I always wanted to do, really kind of mint schedule, mint life, find my point of greatest impact. The day-to-day is pretty straightforward. I'm one of those guys, kind of like you, Nick, and hopefully this, doesn't rat us out too much, but we're at the gym first thing, 4:35, 5:30 in the morning. That sets a tone for the rest of the day. You feel better. It's kind of just that natural antidepressant. Even if you don't need it, you need it, and you realize you need it when you've got it. Then from there, it's getting to work as quick as I can and trying to dial in. I find those morning hours are the most efficient. Your brain's clear, the endorphins are pumping, you feel good, you can do whatever you want, and then that kind of starts to wane by mid to late day. So I try to keep all the important stuff early. And not to say my family's not important, but usually that's kind of the afternoon wind down. Pretty straightforward Monday to Friday. My profession as a facial plastic surgeon is different, unlike someone who does real estate or something where it's more office-based. It's kind of a choose-your-own adventure. I love the days where I'm in surgery, half day, all day. It's physically taxing and it's, a little emotionally taxing, but it's amazing. And I do what I do because I love it. But I do like those days where I can spend a little time working on my business and on my profession instead of just in it. I love what I do, but I think the key is finding that balance between doing what I do and maximizing my ability to do what I do.
Absolutely. And for all of our audience out there, I met Taylor probably about 6 months ago. And it's funny because I would see him walk in the gym, 4:45 in the morning, and I usually start doing a couple of things to kind of wake up and warm up. He comes in and he starts doing these crazy exercises, jumping jacks, all kinds of running still, jump ropes, and immediately, and just kicks it right in and goes. So after I saw him for a couple of weeks, I was like, man, I got to meet this guy.
It is true. 0 to 80 in like 3 minutes flat. Heart rate, buck 80, and you're just like, I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. And it's really impressive. So, I had to go say hi. I had no choice. And then, every day we started talking a little bit, and I started to know you a little bit more. And it's funny because all you talked to me about was really just your family, and that to me really hit home. It was really special.
Cool.
And I know obviously I met your wife, and she's she's exactly your rock, like you said, and you have an amazing family. So tell us what you do to keep a good balanced life with regards to work and a home life, as well as just you.
Great question. So, my wife calls it the me time, and it might be slightly selfish, but by getting that out of the way in the morning, and taking that early time, I don't feel like I'm taken away from much because the kids are asleep, my wife's still asleep. It's hard, and I'll refer back to when I finished training during the entirety of college, med school, residency, fellowship. I mean, that's a decade and a half, and you don't have time to spend doing things where you want, when you want, how you want. And when someone else is calling the shots, it's hard. So then when you finally finish the end of that trek and you can, point the arrow the direction you want, it makes it a lot easier. In this case, it's for a little while I did nights and weekends, and I got a pretty good stink eye from my wife, and she's like, game over. It's time. And I do have to say, the whole reason I did what I did was to be able to get to the point where I can really control my own destiny. And so I do that. I don't work nights, I don't work weekends, and that's rejuvenating. It's huge. Sundays, church and family day. Saturday is full of kids' activities, hit the beach, hit the lake, do whatever. And I got to say, the more I'm home on the evenings, it just drives that home too.
Absolutely. And, Taylor, share with us just a quick story, with one of your clients, how, based on what you did to transform their life, and they, you saw them afterwards, and what was their experience? Yeah.
So, interestingly, when doing facial plastic surgery and reconstructive surgery, a lot of people just kind of consider that the cosmetic world, the country club patient that walks in and says, I want this, and, you operate and take care of them and it's game over. But these are people, just like us, that have lives, they have spouses and kids and families, and they're connected in the community. The most impactful aren't just the reconstructive patients, they're also the cosmetic patients. One that comes to mind when you ask that question is a sweet patient of mine. She was a high school teacher, recently just retired with her last graduating class, and finished working in June, retired officially, popped into my office and said, it's time. And, for this patient, it was specifically, aging face changes, jowling and neck laxity, and the cheeks kind of sagging. And she looks at me and pulls up on her face and says, can we do this? And I say, sure. And it's crazy because to have a patient come in and say, I want this, I want to feel this, I want to feel or look as young as I feel, for me to be able to do that. And it's not just that, 5-6 hour procedure. It's the discussion beforehand, getting to know them and realizing that we have so much in common. And then afterwards, the day after, the week after that, and the week after that, really holding their hand and getting to know them on a personal level. I do find that it has an amazing impact on how they feel about themselves, how they are reflected out in public, how they interact with others. And it's a huge, huge sense of either a self-esteem boost or just I feel comfortable in my skin boost.
That's amazing. So would you say that's partly contributed to you always being, so energetic, so happy, positive all the time, besides your family?
I definitely think so. And I think it's kind of the chicken and the egg concept too, whether it's what drove me to do what I'm doing or that's just innately who I am. I think it's kind of a combination. It is huge. I had buddies in med school that would say, oh my gosh, how do you have a family? And my wife and I got married when we were in college. We were young getting married, and then went to med school, had kids starting halfway through med school, which is just unheard of in a lot of areas. And they would say, how do you do it? And I look at them and say, well, how do you do it? I mean, I had a built-in social life, I had a supportive wife, and kind of that stability. You mentioned kind of that rock, that foundation. So I feel like I was blessed and benefited because I had that from the beginning.
Absolutely. And they say behind every successful, happy man, there's always a rock, a strong woman, right? So
I agree.
Yeah. That's just amazing. And what's even more amazing is for most of us out there, when we think of a doctor, we think of, an older lady or a gentleman with a white coat, right? And you're just what I call like a hybrid, right? You're a young man, you're successful, you're excellent at what you do, and you have a very happy family, happy children. How many children do you have, Taylor?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the kindness. You're the man, Nick. So we have 4 kids from 11 down to 18 months, 2 of each, 2 girls, 2 boys.
Yeah, that's just, it really is amazing how you make time for all of them. And, I spoke to your wife, at the little party we were at a few weeks ago, and I can just tell, like, you guys have such a good thing going on, good balance. Your kids are all just, all close together. You do, not only you're great at what you do, but it's evident that how good your children are with regards to how good they behave. So, props to you. That's really,
Thanks.
It's commendable. It really
that.
is. So, I know you're into audiobooks. We
Love them.
yeah, we exchange, a lot of book names all the time. So why don't you share with our audience, why you listen to books? What's the purpose? What value do they bring to you?
Great question. So I call it, and this isn't my term, the term that's thrown around is the no extra time, the NET time. And that's I'm driving in the car, I'm maybe doing dishes at night after putting the kids down, or, I just have a few free minutes. And that's when I throw in my little earbuds and listen. I do it strictly because I don't have time to sit down and read a book. There's no way to focus and feel like I'm zoning out enough to get in my mind. But having that time to listen to something that's building, not that sports, and we were talking a little bit earlier with Paul about news, not that stuff's not nice, but I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but I find that it's not giving me the greatest impact.
Can I insert something here? We had somebody tweet in, and I had to jump on this as well.
Please
you
do.
guys both talk about getting up early and getting going. Nick has had a couple guests in here, and you guys all are trying to outdo each other. Who gets up first? What time do you get up, and what impact does that have in your life, getting up at that, or to have that kind of self-discipline to get up at 4 or 4:30 or 5 or whatever it seems?
So I'm going to field that, Nick, because it's kind of I'll do a little self-betrayal
Then we
here.
got like a minute or two to go to a commercial here.
So the honest is, not much gets me out of bed except the gym. And part of it's the quote-unquote accountability from guys like Nick here, and we have kind of a small family there. It's awesome. But days when I'm not going to the gym or I don't have to get out of bed, I'll sleep in with the best of them. And it's amazing how the quality of that day just doesn't compare to the days when I feel like I've made an impact and I'm getting things done. So, it's usually around that 4 to 4:30. Nick takes a little bit of kind of wind-up time in the morning. I'm a little bit more plug and play. But I'd say if you're not up by 5, and I've heard a lot of different professionals in this scene, and they say 5 o'clock's kind of that bewitching hour.
And was that just you? Both of you? This is sort of both of you? Or was this something you had to develop? Because I couldn't get up. I could stay up till 5. I'm still an old hippie here. I could stay up all night. But to get up at 5, oh my God, I don't know that I could do that. I force myself regularly to do that. So
it's totally forcing yourself. I mean, once you do it, you're so tired that you're going to bed early, and then your just whole circadian rhythm just shifts. And whether you're a night owl or not, you become a morning person.
Absolutely. It takes 21 days to build or break a habit, right?
Totally.
So, yeah, it's very doable for everyone.
Well, we're going to take 21 seconds out of this show here and do a quick commercial, and we'll come back and hear more from Nick and his motivated guest here.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything. Your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life skills workshops, job skills training. We provide the perfect interview outfit, and we get clients placed in jobs. Call Working Wardrobes, 714-210-2460. Donate, volunteer, invest, hire.
All right, we're back with Nick and his guest.
All right, Taylor. So why don't you share with us how you find me time? What do you do for yourself personally?
I have to say, having a wife that we're close and with 4 kids that are still in the I need mom and dad phase, there really is no me time. And it's probably my wife's greatest complaint during the days we're talking. She just says, oh my gosh, I tried to work out at home and I had this 18-month crawling on my head. And that was about 5 hours ago when I talked to her. That's just how it goes when you have a family and you're young and growing. So it's really before they wake up or after they go to bed. And I find that when after the kids are down, I can barely lift my legs up, let alone get off the couch when I know I need to go to bed. So it's really, alarm goes off and you kind of force your way out of bed and force your way down the morning. And I promise it gets a lot easier once you start moving. I'm sure you feel the same.
Oh, absolutely. What are some of the good books that you've read that have contributed to your life in a positive way?
Gotcha. So there's a few audiobooks. One of them, actually 3 that just when you mention that, they come right to mind. Number 1 is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, the kind of guy that really motivates you to change your life and shift it in a way towards productivity. And it's more kind of, not personality, but just real deeper type changes. Another one that we talked about that's a little deep, and it might be a little too deep for some of the listeners, is Seed of the Soul. Being a very Christian, very spiritual individual, very, very used to reading scripture, Bible type thing, to jump into a book that's written by a random guy that talks about that stuff and puts it in a different perspective. That to me was incredibly, incredibly insightful. And then one other that I just listened to probably about a month ago that was a little more worldly but a great mindset changer was Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. I mean, I know there's a little motivational speech in there too, and I don't think that hurts. I think that sometimes you need that little kind of pick-me-up, especially in the afternoon when all you want to do is watch some news and sports. You get that kind of motivational build, and it helps you.
Absolutely. And, I look at it as, we're all student of life, right? Most people, after college, they feel like, that's it. They've done all
game
their...
over.
Right, game's over. But like guys like you, Taylor, you just continue evolving, and you're doing that by at least putting in, what would you say, 30 minutes to an hour of books a day?
Yeah, I mean, some days where there's a little more driving or, a little bit more downtime, it could be more. But, I mean, my thought is if it's at least 30 minutes, compound that over a week, a month, a year. I mean, it's like just continuing through college.
So, and here's the crazy part about Taylor that people don't know.
Uh-oh.
So I think one day a week, he literally rides his motorcycle up to Beverly Hills to operate on people and goes up there and listens to his book and operates on people and comes back. I mean, this guy is just an absolute go-getter, right?
I do, and that's when I refer to driving and time on the road. When you're on a motorcycle in Southern California on the 405, you're kind of just hoping to not die. So putting on an audiobook and trying to not die is about as far as I can extend myself. But yeah, I find myself using that time because, I mean, what else would I be doing? It's just a perfect opportunity. Absolutely.
What would you say has been your biggest source of inspiration or motivation lately in your career?
So again, going back to the paradigm shift from being in the college med student residency fellowship world, it's really been getting into the community and being around people with similar shared values and beliefs. It's one thing to kind of have that innate within you, and my wife Amber and I have always been on the same page there, but to be associating with others, yourself included, just really high-functioning, successful, personable, and at the end of the day, family-oriented individuals with the same goals, I think that's really been the shift. I mean, I've always read and heard that you are the sum of the three people you spend the most time with in that field. Well, why not make it count? So, if I want to be like Nick, why not hang around Nick, and people that share similar mindsets?
Absolutely. And let me ask you this, do you know any other doctors that are like you, that have your routine, your discipline, your come from? Do you know any other doctors around like you?
I know a few. When you finish the surgical training world, and especially in the cosmetic plastic surgery world like I am, it's really join a group, join a hospital system, or start your own thing. But that starting your own thing takes a lot of... I don't know a good word for it, but it just takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort, energy. So there's a few of us, and I have a few colleagues, probably 5 or 6 that I stay in touch with. And they're early risers, they're grinders, they get stuff done, and we really kind of lean on each other, bounce ideas back and forth, share the good experiences, share the bad, and having those people that are of a similar mindset helps. But I do have to say it's kind of the exception. There's not a huge amount because most kind of fall back into that academic, big hospital group world.
Absolutely. And here's a good question for you, Taylor. I know a lot of people, in your profession, even my profession, they go home and, they have to leave work behind, right? When they go inside the house, they want to, that's all family time. And I know you're really good at doing that. How do you do that? Tell our audience how you're able to, when you open the door, you go in, the Taylor, the surgeon Taylor is outside, the Taylor, the dad, and the husband is inside.
Great question. And I think that's actually one of the biggest challenges. And it goes back to the idea that you can't multitask or do 2 things at once. There's just no way. So when I'm at work, 100%, all in. When I'm in the OR, as my patients prefer, obviously, I'm all in, I'm focused, 100% intense on that. And then when I'm home, I try to do the exact same thing. Drop the bag. I go home in my pajamas, my scrubs, so it looks like I'm coming from work. But otherwise, I try to change my mindset and my mentality. Walk in, hey, hon, how can I help? What do we do? Who do I pick up? And when you give yourself 100% to that and to the family, it's like an hour or 2 spent feels like longer.
That's just incredible. You're literally and really living the American dream. I mean,
I love it.
It's really commendable. It really is. Were you always this way, or is this a habit you developed?
I think there's a degree of development to it, but I think I always had this in mind. I tell my patients, I'm pretty leave it to beaver, pretty vanilla from the beginning, kind of blue collar neighborhood and growing up that way. And that's just how my parents were, my grandparents were, and it just kind of, came through in me. But I see individuals that are around and other professionals, and their life isn't quite set up the way I like, so I try to pick and choose the good and the bad. And after having spent years thinking about how I want to push, to me this really is the most comfortable.
That is just incredible. I'm sure, your kids one day when they grow up,
we hope.
Absolutely. They're just going to look at you like a beacon of light, for their entire life. So congratulations.
Thanks,
really,
man.
on everything you've achieved. All right. So thank you, Taylor. You're an amazing guy. I appreciate your time coming here and sharing with our audience, about who you are, what you do, and what the recipe of success for you is. And for all of our audience out there, again, it's not a mystery. It's just follow successful people, and success leaves clues.
Can I ask you a quick question here before I know you're trying to wrap up here?
Please do.
How do people find others to follow? You guys stumbled into each other at the gym. Lucky you. And I'm hearing more and more there's a group of high-powered people at the gym. I got to get up and see the gym at 4 o'clock because that's where the good people are. That's where the high-powered people are. But are there other, you've talked about being Christians, and there must be Christian groups you belong to, or mentoring groups or anything. How do audiences out there listening saying, okay, so they found each other and they're part of a high-powered community. I want to be part of a high-powered community. Where do I go? Where do I go to join the clubhouse? I kidded in the beginning. It's like a clubhouse. It is. Like, where do I go to join the club?
I've got my thoughts, but Nick, please.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Well, so interestingly, and it's not just at the gym. I love to use that example, Paul, because there's everybody at the gym. It's the when and the where. That early crowd, they're there because they want to be there. They're there because they have things to do. And I don't want to say it's more or less important, but they've got priorities, and clearly they're at the same mindset. So it's really the who's there and when. Obviously, in my professional circle, we have our big academy meetings and professional meetings, and you run into people there. And I don't want to say the cream rises to the top, but you tend to associate with those that are like-minded. You're just drawn, kind of like that magnetic draw. You're just drawn to each other because you automatically have that same drive. I find that it's the same in the neighborhood with, civic groups, school groups, coaching teams. The same people kind of keep falling into that same pocket where you're exposed to each other. It's almost coincidental, but it's not.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a wrap for this episode of the NRG Podcast. We appreciate you listening in, and remember, you can catch on all of our episodes on Podbean. Stay tuned for our next episode featuring another dynamic guest who will share inspiration, motivation, and game-changing information for all of our listeners.
And thanks so much. And how do they reach you, Nick, and your guest?
My website is nickroshdie.com. That is NICKROSHDIEH group.com. And 949-254-4775 is my private number.
And your guest?
Yeah, so for me, email works, but the website has all my contact info, and it's Pollei, facialplasticsurgery.com. Pollei. FACIALPLASTIC surgery.com.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing who's going to come in next week. Who else is part of the club? It's amazing. There are so many of you like-minded people out there, and you're finding each other, and we'd all like to ride along here. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Stay tuned for the next NRG podcast episode, live every Thursday at 2 p.m. on OC Talk Radio. Follow host Nick Roshdi on Instagram and visit nickroshdygroup.com to explore his real estate endeavors. Interested in being a guest on the show? Message Nick on Facebook.